What if I told you that Hamilton engineers have revealed for the first time data that question Ferrari's future this season? What would happen if you found out that your car did not evolve at all during the most crucial classification of the calendar? Today we are not going to talk about speculation, but about the raw and real facts that emerge from the Hamilton SF-25 telemetry itself. What happened with Lewis Hamilton in the classification of the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix goes far beyond a simple sixth position. If one observes only the final result in the timetable, it may seem a correct performance. But when scratching the surface and accessing internal data, what appears is an alarming technical scene. A scene that should light all alarms within Ferrari, and especially among those who still think that this project with Hamilton can be successful in the short term. The data revealed by engineers are not opinions, they are not interpretations. They are made. The SF-25 was unable to improve 1/10 between Q1 and Q3. In a session where top teams usually scratch 2, 3, or even 4/10 between each phase, thanks to the increase in track grip and the progressive adaptation of the car to the conditions, Ferrari simply did not advance. Nothing. Hamilton's car stagnated. And in Formula 1, staying still is the same as going back. This stagnation has clear technical explanations. The first of these is the inability of the SF-25 to adapt to the unique conditions of Marina Bay. An urban, nocturnal circuit with slippery asphalt, constant temperature changes and critical braking areas. There, the car did not behave like a point of end, but as a capricious and unpredictable machine. In fact, telemetry records show abnormal variability in chassis load transfers, especially during traction braking transitions. But there is more. The erratic behavior of the car is also reflected in the slow traction curves, where the SF-25 showed microdecilizations in the rear that did not correspond to the pilot's inputs. In other words, the car reacts badly even when leading to the limit of precision. This destroys any sense of trust. And if there is something that a pilot like Hamilton needs to extract pure performance, it is exactly that, trust. What is happening with Ferrari and tire management is much more serious than it seems to the naked eye. In modern Formula 1, where the operational window of the Pirelli compounds can be as small as 2 or 3 degrees, losing 5 or 6 degrees of temperature before going on track is practically a competitive suicide. And that is exactly what is happening with Ferrari's SF-25, as confirmed by Hamilton's engineers after the Singapore classification. To understand the magnitude of the problem, you have to understand how a Formula tire actually works. Each compound has an optimal temperature window in which it offers its maximum grip, both lateral and longitudinal. When it comes out of that window, the rubber can crystallize and lose adhesion or, on the contrary, overheat and degrade prematurely. The key is to maintain that stable temperature just at the time the pilot starts its quick return. In Ferrari, that process is breaking into 2 critical parts: the Pittsburgh lane exit and the preparation return. Ferrari's current strategy, something Hamilton has already criticized publicly, implies long waits in the Pittsburgh lane tail to find traffic-free holes. About paper is a good idea. In practice, it is devastating. These waiting can last between 20 and 40 seconds, enough time for the surface temperature of soft tires to fall between 5 and 6 degrees Celsius. Such a loss forces the pilot to juggle during the preparation return to recover that thermal energy. But that extra effort has an immediate cost. When one finally reaches the curve 1 of its fast return, the tire has already suffered a peak of stress that reduces its initial grip and compromises the entire return. This vicious circle is especially harmful in circuits such as Marina Bay, where low-speed traction and abrupt braking are constant. There, recovering temperature is not as simple as in a fast curve circuit. Hamilton is forced to stop later, accelerate before, and slide slightly more than ideal to heat the rubber. The result: the tires reach the temperature at the end of the preparation return, but they enter the chronometer return with premature wear and with areas of the compound already unequally overheated. That translates into a loss of progressive grip, especially in the final sectors, and in times of return that seem inexplicably slow for a pilot of his caliber. The most worrying thing about this situation is that it is not something isolated from Singapore. According to the internal data of the team, this trend has been repeated in virtually all classifications of the 2025 season. Charles Leclerc has also been affected, but to a lesser extent, probably because its driving style is less aggressive in the tire heating phase and softer in the transfer of loads. Hamilton, accustomed to a more direct and fast reaction style, suffers more these oscillations because its piloting requires the car to respond immediately. This erratic behavior has a devastating psychological effect on the pilot. When you go to the track knowing that your tires will not be ready for the first curve, You reduce trust and start adjusting your braking, acceleration, and layout references. This makes the pilot not only waste time due to lack of grip, but also due to lack of mental rhythm, since he has to improvise in each curve. In Formula One, trust is a performance multiplier. Without it, everything else collapses. The average Singapore sector has everything to expose the defects of a car. Strong braking areas, 90-degree curves, traction from low speed, aggressive pianos, and acceleration sections that require millimeter precision. It is the place where the car must be in total synchrony with its tires. And there it is precisely where the SF-25 showed its deepest cracks. According to the data filtered by Ferrari's technical team, in that section Hamilton lost approximately 0.2 to the McLaren. It may seem little, but in modern Formula One, that is the difference between fighting pole and getting caught in the third row. And the most serious thing is that these 0.2 do not come from a human error, not even from a strategic failure. They are the pure reflection of a technical disability. The SF-25 could not keep the tires in its operational window just when I needed it most. This is where the tire temperature problem becomes a waterfall of negative consequences. When the compounds are not within their optimal range, the grip fades. And when that happens, the car begins to slide. Not in large blocks or spectacular trumpers, but in those small imperceptible tensile losses for the human eye, but devastating in the stopwatch.in telemetry. This translates into a decrease in time that the pilot can keep the accelerator thoroughly. In Marina Bay, Hamilton was 2% less aggressive with the accelerator in this sector than its direct rivals. Not because I would not like to accelerate, but because the car did not allow it. Each attempt to squeeze the grip resulted in a subtle but constant survival. The pilot had to correct line, briefly release the gas, recalculate trajectories, and continue losing thousandths in each curve. One of the most revealing areas is curve 10, one of the most important traction outlets of the circuit, which leads to a small line where the DRS is activated. There, the SF-25 showed a delay in power delivery, not by engine failures, but for a deliberate delay of the pilot when looking for a cleaner traction. Hamilton simply couldn't step on the accelerator at the same time as McLaren or Russell's Mercedes without losing the car. This delay, although minimal, accumulated back after return, curve after curve, becoming a long time that ended up deciding its final position in the classification. But it's not just the traction. We also talk about weight transfer. In this average sector, the balance of the car is constantly tested. Each change of direction between curves such as 9 and 11 requires a stable and predictable chassis base. The problem with the SF-25 is that the lateral load transfer is not uniform. The rear of the car responds with unexpected micromoots that break the flow of curve passage. This not only hinders management, but forces the pilot to adjust their constantly reference points. And in a circuit like Marina Bay, where each curve is chained with the next one without breathing, that instability becomes a cumulative punishment. The most alarming thing is that Ferrari had already identified this type of behavior on other high-cargo aerodynamic tracks. But what happened in Singapore was the confirmation that the problem persists in its most acute form. Despite all resources, data, simulations, and work sessions in Maranello, the SF-25 failed to sustain its rhythm in the sector that most demands at a dynamic level. And when the car cannot hold its balance in a single round thrown, there is no talent, no experience, or strategy that saves it. The so-called cursed sector is not just a lost time zone. It is the tangible manifestation of a conceptual failure. There they face the aerodynamic design, the thermal management of the tires, the work of the chassis, and the equipment of the team to deliver to their pilots a precision tool. In the case of Hamilton, that confrontation was unequal. His talent was caught in a car that does not respond when he needs it most. And in Formula One, it is not enough to be fast. You have to be fast when it touches. Ferrari, for now, cannot fulfill that promise. But beyond the frustration of the present, there is the question that must resonate in each Ferrari fan, in each fan of Formula One, in each engineer and every strategist of the team. Is this crisis the end of an illusion or the beginning of an authentic transformation? Can this low point, this awkward mirror that was the classification of Singapore, to be the spark that turns on a real change in the way Ferrari operates, listens, and acts? Is it the time when the team stops looking towards the past with nostalgia and starts building the future with courage? I invite you to leave me your opinion in the comments. Do you think Ferrari has resources and courage to transform this weakness into an opportunity? Or do you think this season can be escaped from the hands even with a pilot like Hamilton at the wheel? Where do you think the real problem is? In the machine, in the strategy, or in the team's mentality?